Hey everyone, it's time to Nefes and chill, and I'll be going over everything I've compiled from the 5 weeks of the public test service cycle for ESO's update 37 in regards to class changes, nerfs, buffs, adjustments, and other combat gameplay changes as well for the Elder Scrolls Online. If you don't want to listen to me, I've also written it all down here on the ESO University website, linked in the description below. If you want to keep up to date with all things ESO, definitely subscribe to the channel, as that's one of the biggest ways you can support our content creation. First, let's start off with one of the biggest things, tanking and taunting changes. Soft taunts are now officially part of the combat system with a back-end 15-second taunt timer on specific abilities and sets. And I kind of made an entire video covering what is applied for soft taunts and how hard it is to get to things like over taunting. So definitely check it out. Also, another big thing, bar swapping while you're actively holding block, no longer disables block. And after tanking up quite a bit on the PTS, I enjoy it. It actually feels pretty good for once. All right, but yeah, let's move on to the class changes. So Dragon Knight, Empowering Chains has been changed to Chains of Devastation, which now grants Major Berserk for 4 seconds after casting rather than Empower. It was originally 10 seconds, but they nerfed it during the PTS cycle. Molten Whip's issue, where it could fail to activate condition requirements that stay when casting an ability that costs magic or stamina, was also fixed. We also do have a adjustment to the Helping Hands passive, where basically you can't really spam Ash Cloud or Eruption anymore for that infinite stamina, as said by the developers. And for the Necromancer, we do have the Grave Lord skill line also being slightly affected by a couple of fixes and also nerf. Skeletal Archer Morph has been fixed, where the damage boost from the morph would fail to apply if the damage was blocked. The Grave Robber Morph's synergy damage has been nerfed by about 34%, much to the chagrin of Necromancer mains everywhere. Under the Bone Tyrant skill line, Death Gleaning passive, it now restores 666 magic and stamina when a nearby enemy dies, up from 200 stamina magicka as full passives. For the Sorcerer, bunch of changes, or rather buffs, to the Conjured Ward skill. They increase the damage shield size of the Conjured Ward and the other morph by 10%. They also increase the max health cap of these abilities to 55%, up from 50% for sword tanking. And now the ability in morphs now dynamically scale on its strength between the higher of your max health or magicka rather than only magicka. For the Hardened Ward morph, they also increase the damage shield size further with this morph by approximately 7%, and increase the total max health cap to 72%, up from 60%. So it's quite big. Someone unstable familiar. There was a bug where, like, if another sorc or pet sorcerer aggroed the boss or whatever, their pets would get into combat, and then your pets would join them as well, which probably caused some confusion between some players. So yeah, that's been fixed. For Mage's Fury, they increased the size of the AoE portion of Mage's Fury, the sort of execute ability, from 4 to 5 meters. I don't think it's going to be a huge difference, but okay. They also fixed an issue where the execute damage from these abilities were not apparently labeled as an execute. They also said the Mage's Wrath morph now deals its execute damage to all targets nearby, rather than dealing an initial hit and a smaller amount of damage to nearby targets, which will result in an approximate 129% damage increase in the AoE portion of the ability. The Overload skill has been fixed, where this ultimate and its morphs would not remove themselves when heavy attacking with just enough ultimate for one tick. I actually experienced this on the Update 36 live server. It was a little annoying. What they also didn't say here, for whatever reason as well, they actually improved the animation of toggling Overload, so it feels a lot smoother compared to Update 36. So Update 37 will definitely be a lot more reliable when you want to toggle Power Overload on and just heavy attack with it. Conduit synergy damage, in contrast to Necromancer's Graveyard synergy damage, has been buffed by 20%. For the Templar, and yes, Templar mains, the Jabs animation, it has not been reverted. The Empowering Sweep Morph has been renamed the Everlasting Sweep Morph, and the new effects are increased duration of the dot to 10 seconds at base, up from 6 seconds, and while it no longer grants him power, uh, the dot is expected to kind of make up for it. That's pretty much it. For Backlash, there was an issue where the Backlash base skill and the Purifying Light Morph were considered magical melee damage rather than magical range damage. So I guess the game will not recognize it as ranged magical damage. The Living Dark Morph, there were some issues with it where it could cause you to appear invisible when you use it in some cases, or some other funky visual effects would persist. So those two separate issues should have been fixed. The Purify synergy apparently was not working properly in terms of its heal gain when you synergize it, so they fixed that. So you should see a little bit of an increase in the healing done. Cutting Dive Morph for the Warden no longer requires the enemy to be off-balanced for the dot portion to apply, and will now apply anytime it deals damage, which is pretty cool. The Crystallized Shield has a number of changes to it. Now it grants 2 ultimate when the shield takes damage, rather than restoring magicka equal to 22% of the ability's cost. Definitely a sustained hit there. Increase the cost of the Crystallized Shield and its morphs from to 4,320, up from 3,780. Again, another big hit to sustain there. Reduce the shield strength of this ability and the Shimmering Shield morph by approximately 33%. And for the one of the 2 morphs, Crystallized Slab, this morph no longer grants magicka or the new ultimate restore when the shield takes damage, in exchange for the damage done in stun. This morph does retain the original size of the damage shield, reduce the damage per hit of this morph by approximately 33% as well. And the devs, I guess, wanted to comment on this for the Warden players. Currently, the ability and its morphs are enabling too much defensive power for the Warden against ranged opponents, while simultaneously allowing them to keep the ability up with next to no cost. And this is a PvP thing. In order to peel back some of the power in those regards, we are increasing the cost and removing the self-sustaining portion, while also trying to give some love back with Ultimate Generation. While doing this, we're also trying to differentiate the morph power you pick from, where Slab is more about shaking off ranged builds and being more defensive, while Shimmering doubles down on the juicy Ultimate Generation. Now, that's pretty much all the class changes and adjustments. Not too many, not too much, compared to Update 35. And of course, kind of like with the same theme of Update 36, it's going to be kind of like tame changes, at least until the chapter where the new class is coming, right? For the weapon skill lines, there has also been fixes and changes as well. Trifocus, there was an issue where I guess the block cost override was persisting after using the armory system. Cool. Ancient Knowledge passive, there were multiple issues where the Inferno and Lightning Staff components were applying to incorrect attack types. I'm assuming different abilities as well. Elemental Susceptibility, the more secondary effects are now tracked separately rather than being linked to Major Breach. This will allow the stats effects from the ability to continue while multiple applications are active, or when other sources of Major Breach apply and override this. So this is actually an old problem, an old issue that happened in the past with different sources giving the same debuffs like penetration and stuff like that. So I'm glad they're fixing this for susceptibility. They also reduced the tick frequency to 7.5 seconds, down from 6, which is going to be a slight nerf because right now the burning and the other stats effects are kind of taking once every 6 seconds, but now it's going to be once every 7.5 seconds. Wall of Elements, all versions of this ability and its morphs will now display a hostile telegraph to enemies. This is for PvP. And Wall of Frost and its morphs will now apply Minor Breach and reduce the movement speed of enemies by 40% for 4 seconds when damaging a chilled target, rather than immobilizing them for 4 seconds. For two-handed, and this is a big one, they did fix an issue where Uppercut, or rather Wrecking Blow, would improperly target someone and you would just not be able to cast it. That's a big change right there. But also, Wrecking Blow now grants Major Berserk for 5 seconds after casting it. So some of you may have heard whispers that, oh my god, two-hander on the front bar, dual wield on the back bar might be meta for PvE single target now. And that actually may be the case, as Wrecking Blow has retained its Major Berserk duration compared to the Dragon Knight's Major Berserk duration from Chains being nerfed from 10 to 4 seconds as of the PTS. The Stampede morph has been fixed where the initial hit of the morph will only guarantee its critical strike against the first targeted hit rather than all targets hit. Now, this means that when you are stampeding maybe 2 bosses or a crowd of ads, that guaranteed critical strike will not only hit the one you targeted in that crowd, but literally everything near it. So that's pretty nice. However, the guaranteed critical strike does not apply to the dot portion, which is fair, and of course by design, as noted by developers. Dual wield flurry fixed an issue when this ability and Morse where the damage and audio impacts appeared delayed and out of sync with its animation. I hope they also do this for the Templar Jabs ability because I can still hear the fourth strike. So for those of you who don't know, before update 35, sweeps hit at least I believe 4 times, and then you would hear it. But after they update the animation for it, where it's a 0.8 second weave channel, you can still hear the fourth hit go out after the third hit finishes, after the animation finishes. So I hope they can review that for sweeps, and I think address some people's grievances with it while in the process. For Vampire, again, the biggest change for Vampire wasn't passes or anything like that, which historically it is, but it was Mistform, an active ability, which was very surprising. And I'm going to show you just like a demo here from another video I did. So this is what Mistform basically looks like. Both morphs, basically. The heal morph from the heal and damage morph from the AoE, and also the one that gives you major expedition and so forth. So yeah, the Blood Mist morph, however, they did, during the PTS, reduce the healing of the morph to 45%, down from 100%. But they did buff the damage slightly by 9%. I guess there was an issue, or maybe it was overpowered somehow with the healing. They also did stick with the Elusive Mist morph change, where it grants major expedition and major evasion after for 4 seconds after reappearing. So yeah, and you guys can read the developer comment here. They just trying to they continue to experiment with this, and that's okay to me, I guess. But hopefully they land somewhere and they don't have to change this anymore. Because it's like I guess throughout ESO's history, maybe 5th or 6th time they've kind of had to tackle this ability in such a significant fashion. But yeah, Werewolf, we do have a couple buffs to Werewolf. The synergy now grants minor force from Fading Frenzy's morph, and Empower for 10 seconds rather than only Empower for 5 seconds. The Howl of Despair morph now allows the casters to self-synergize Feeding Frenzy. It's really interesting. So something to keep an eye on here, actually. For the guilds and Alliance War skill lines, there aren't too many changes. For example, for Decision Order, we do have an issue where the Concentrated Barrier passive shield can become stuck after swapping to a bar that didn't have a Decision Order ability slot in. Trap Beast and its morphs will now only trigger ability timers after they've hit a target, rather than after placing and after hitting a target. So that's kind of convenient. For Guard, there was an issue where the ability and morph's transfer damage was able to trigger, I guess they didn't want to mention here because there were probably exploits or something, other conditional requirements, probably with sets or something like that. So that was fixed apparently. But yeah, that's pretty much it in terms of class changes, combat balance, and adjustments. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. For now, I'm honestly kind of waiting for the chapter and the patch after the chapter to see if it's gonna be like a repeat of 2022, which was terrible. And also, of course, everyone, including myself, we're excited to see what the Arcanist will offer. So it'll be interesting. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about the combat changes down in the comments below. Are you satisfied with it? Do you think they should have been more adventurous this time around, or should they just keep it a bit more tame until maybe they know what they want after the Arcanist comes out? Personally, I'm for the latter. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.